Today we're going to start by giving, as Natalie said, giving a brief history of the origins of Black Lives Matter, as well as the origins of the phrase All Lives Matter, and we're going to discuss why All Lives Matter is offensive and unacceptable. And then we'll go out into breakout rooms to discuss and take part in simulations to practice how to respond when the phrase All Lives Matters is used. All Lives Matters.
So the history of the Black Lives Matter movement. So we'll be discussing the origin of the Black Lives Matter organization, but it's important to note that there is a distinction between the phrase Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter movement. In this presentation, we are going to focus on more of the impact of the phrase as its own entity, and this subject is first and foremost a human rights issue. So our focus is on the phrase Black Lives Matter rather than the Black Lives Matter political organization, as it goes hand in hand with the beginnings of the phrase. So in February of 2012, 17-year-old Trayvon Martin was walking to his dad's home in Sanford, Florida, when he encountered George Zimmerman, who was a 20-year-old neighborhood watchman who was patrolling the gated community that Trayvon was entering. Zimmerman, suspecting Trayvon of suspicious behavior because he was wearing a hood and was visiting the area, called the police, who told him to wait in his vehicle. Shortly after, gunshots rang through the phone speaker, and Zimmerman confessed to killing Trayvon in self-defense. He was charged with second-degree murder, but acquitted. So in response to the lack of justice for Trayvon, Alicia Garza wrote a love letter to Black people and posted it on Facebook, in which she said, "Black people, I love you, I love us, our lives matter." Her friend Patrice Conquilors saw the post and, recognizing the significance of those words, posted, "Black bodies will no longer be sacrificed for the rest of the world's enlightenment. I am done, I am so done. Trayvon, you're loved infinitely. Hashtag Black Lives Matter." A few days later, Colors posted to announce the founding of the Black Lives Matter movement by saying, "Alicia Garza, myself, and hopefully more Black people than we can imagine are embarking on a project. We are calling it Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a movement attempting to visualize what it means to be Black in this country, provide hope and inspiration for collective action, to build collective power to achieve collective transformation rooted in grief and rage, but pointed towards vision and dreams." Their friend, Opal Tometi, joined them in creating the website and mobilizing people. And the Black Lives Matter movement, which now spans countries, was founded.
The movement became more widely known after two high-profile deaths in 2014 of unarmed African-American men, Eric Gardner and Michael Brown. Neither of the police officers involved in their deaths were formally charged with the crime, leading to a widespread outrage at the American judicial system and pleas for change. The movement has gained more traction recently due to the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor, as seen by the weeks of protests through America in the past months. The presence of social media has played a large role in the Black Lives Matter movement, especially concerning these recent murders. Hashtag Black Lives Matter, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and many other hashtags for those who have been murdered have been trending for weeks. Black Lives Matter is about human rights, not a political issue between Democrats or Republicans. The hashtag BLM has grown to envelop the movement towards a more equitable America. And organizations such as Colors of Change and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People uphold this statement. Black Lives Matter has become a way of life and has been adapted into statements such as Black Students Matter, Black Doctors Matter, etc. The goal of the official Black Lives Matter movement is, by combating and countering acts of violence, creating space for Black imagination and innovation, and centering Black joy, we are winning immediate improvements in our lives.
So Black Lives Matter acknowledges the significant gaps in the Black liberation movements that have been mostly for Black heterosexual cisgender men, and is working to center the leadership in more effective ways for all members of the Black community. And in reaction to Trump's administration's recent decision to end protections against gender identity discrimination in healthcare, along with the recent murders of Dominique Remy Fells and Rhea Milton, the slogan All Black Lives Matter has arisen. This slogan has gained traction in order to show the issues within the Black community on top of all other social issues that the Black community must face. All Black Lives Matter highlights the intersection of Black identity with different gender orientations, sexualities, and abilities.
And so transitioning into the All Lives Matter movement itself, there isn't much information or much specific information regarding the origin of the All Lives Matter phrase, but it did start to become popular after the Black Lives Matter movement started to gain social media traction. It has been popularized by people ranging from Rand Paul to Richard Sherman, excuse me, as well as President Donald Trump, all of whom have publicly expressed their frustration at what they believe to be the exclusivity of the Black Lives Matter movement. And within the movement itself, there are two main sides of the phrase All Lives Matter. Some people use it to slight the Black Lives Matter movement, and there are others who use it as a method of fighting for equality and peace between all races. Oftentimes, however, those who use the All Lives Matter phrase don't really recognize the negative connotations the slogan has, and they believe that they're only advocating for the latter viewpoint despite the consequences it has on the Black Lives Matter movement itself. And so with the All Lives Matter movement, a few other movements have arisen, such as the Blue Lives Matter movement, which was founded to drum up public support for the police, as well as the White Lives Matter movement, which is a direct attack on the Black Lives Matter movement.
So why is All Lives Matter problematic? To understand the Black Lives Matter movement, you must first understand the systematic racism that Americans have faced in this country since its founding. From the 1787 Three-Fifths Compromise, which declared African Americans to be only 3/5 of a person, to Jim Crow's laws, to the fact that Black Americans, on average, still have only $13,000 of wealth compared to the average white American's $150,000. In addition, Black men are 2.5 times more likely to die at the hands of the police than white men are, showing that systemic racism is and implicit biases continue to oppress Black lives more than any other racial group in the United States. The saying Black Lives Matter does not mean that only Black lives matter. It is saying that right now we need to address the problems that the Black community is facing. To choose to say all lives matter, ignore the fact that Black lives haven't mattered in the history of the United States, and that there's a need to say Black lives matter. All lives matter neglects the important fact that in history, the value of Black lives was not a given, as Black people were brutalized, tortured, and murdered based on the color of their skin. To quote the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, "We are working for a world where Black lives are no longer systematically targeted for demise. We affirm our humanity, our contributions to this society, our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. The call for Black Lives to Matter is a rallying cry for all Black lives striving for liberation."
So here's a TikTok that we found that we think really explains the what it sounds like when people say all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter.
Hey, what are you doing? Oh, this house is on fire, so we're gonna go help them. We're gonna go put out the fire. Well, what about my house? What? What about my house? Doesn't it matter? Is your house on fire? No, but like it still matters. Nobody said that it didn't. It's just that this house is on fire and people's lives are at stake if we don't do something about it. Okay, all houses matter. What?
Yeah, so that was the TikTok. So now we're going to transition into discussion.